really happy to do what I can and help you all. You guys are, kind of an exciting point in learning what you can do in your careers, and so I'm happy to have the opportunity to talk with you. So my name is Adam Hammonds, Media Relations Director for TxDOT. I'm a former news reporter and just kind of transitioned into TxDOT from there. And with me is Laura Butterbrook.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Laura Butterbrodt, and I'm also on the media relations team here.
So wanted to talk with you guys about how best to professionally communicate. And in my perspective, I think a lot of that is how you communicate over email. When I first got into TxDOT from news, it was such an interesting thing going from kind of the private sector into maybe the corporate world a little bit. And it was a bit of a transition for me to understand how to have that vernacular to talk with people in email and to have that kind of tone and conversation you wanted to do. And it's a little bit of learning process. So I'm going to try to give a little bit of tips and tricks as far as what I've learned over the past couple of years to see if I can help you all. So what to expect in the presentation. So we're going to talk about why is professional communication important. We're going to talk about virtual communication. We are in a virtual world now. COVID changed a lot of things, and we are talking virtually right now. And so that's going to be what you're going to be experiencing a lot. We're going to talk about in-person communication, AI, and we're going to go through some questions. But I will say, if you want to have questions at any point in the presentation, please don't hesitate to raise your hand, put something in the comments. Happy to just have a kind of casual conversation here. This is to really help you all in any kind of questions that you have when you're looking at your career. So why professional communications matter? And I'm also really curious if you guys get the reference in the GIF, but we'll see. So first off, professional communication matters. It shows respect to the people you work with. And I think respect is a big thing in terms of respecting their time, respecting their what they're doing and how much work load that they have in their own job. And so having that professional communication kind of builds respect towards each other. It saves time. If you communicate in the best way, that you don't have to then send another email or have a back and forth that really wastes some time, and it really can save time and make sure things get done smoothly. It also avoids animosity. If you are able to professionally communicate, then you don't build kind of animosity towards other people. And you don't have a sarcastic font on email. And so if you're able to communicate effectively, then you can communicate in the best way where it may not offend someone else, or it builds to that. It can also build relationships. So if you're communicating the best way, you can build those relationships with each other and to grow and to build a better product for the business. And finally, just build your career. Relationships are huge in building your career. That's really how you go up the ladder. That's how you get at their jobs. So building those relationships are huge to help build your career and to where you want to go.
So one thing that I have discovered as I've worked for TxDOT for almost 3 years now is that there are a lot of people here. So I think we're over 13,000 employees now, and there are a lot of different roles that people hold. So it's important to know who you're talking to before you send a message to them. Something that I like to do is go before I send the email, when I type their name into the to line, I hover over and see, okay, who does this person report to? Are they on my same team? Are they on like maybe a similar level to me? Or are they one of the big bosses in charge? Like, am I emailing Director Mark Williams? That is something that you would have a different tone when you're emailing somebody who is higher up than you are maybe somebody who's on a similar level to you if they're on your team, or someone who's on a different team. So that's helpful to know. And then it's also important to know when you're talking to somebody, if they can help you, you need to know what they need from you and what you need from them. So always lay that out really clearly. And then Another thing too with the hierarchy is just kind of knowing how busy people are. Typically, the higher up they are, they probably have a lot of different things going on. So it's important to know they're probably busy. They might not get back to you right away, but just respecting their time. And then same thing goes for like email versus Teams. And email is usually a little bit more professional, maybe something if it's not critical that they respond in the next 5 minutes. You can send an email, and then if you need to lay out, okay, I'm on a deadline, I need you to respond to me by the end of the day, or maybe it's not so important. Get back to me whenever you can in the next couple of weeks. And you can kind of lay out that deadline to them so they know how important your request is. And then if you Teams message somebody, that's usually more casual. Maybe it's someone who's on your same team or your direct supervisor, someone you're a little more comfortable talking to. Or it could be like, I need a response in the next 30 minutes. You can Teams message somebody if they're not responding over email, just to kind of get their attention. But that's usually something I do as like a last resort, if it's not somebody that I'm working with frequently over Teams. And yeah, I mean, like we said before, it's just important to respect people's time because everyone's busy. Some people are especially busy. So when you're crafting your email or Teams message, just try to get to the point quickly and in an organized way. So lay out what you need from them. I always like to introduce myself if it's somebody that I haven't emailed or worked with before. Just say, hey, I'm on the media relations team. I'm working on a newsroom story about this topic. Could you help me find XYZ? Or could you give me your opinion on this topic? Let me know if you need to set up a meeting. Just kind of make the next steps clear and just make sure that whatever you're asking for is very clear so that they don't have to waste time responding back. What exactly do you need from me? I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. And so it's always important to just try to be as clear and concise as possible.
Yeah, and I like to do, and we'll talk about this as far as like advice, but I like to say in that first sentence exactly what you need from them. So you're saying, hey, I need, we have an interview request that came in and we need information on this topic. Can you send that to me? And then you can explain exactly more. But in that first sentence, you go immediately to the point as far as why you're emailing. And that really respects their time whenever they're looking through it, to understand why you're emailing. So I think there can be maybe an assumption that being professional is being uptight, formal, and boring. And I don't think that's correct. I think you can be professional and friendly. You can be clear and conversational. You can be respectful and yourself. And so really keeping that in mind where you don't have to sound professional, you don't have to sound formal. You can still be yourself while being professional and getting whatever you need to be doing done. And so you can do that in terms of a number of things. Like here's an example of an actual email that TN Magazine sends out, I think once every couple months. That is very professional, but it's very good to look at. You know, you got emojis, you've got bolds, you've got different colors. That's still professional, but it's also kind of interesting to look at, and it kind of grabs the eye. So that is definitely encouraged. One thing I want to talk about is before you send any virtual communications, make sure you pause before hitting send. So just pause, take a quick look and scan for any kind of mistakes, scan for everything, and then also maybe scan for tone as well. You know, you might be having a bad day. And so you want to make sure that what you're saying is not coming off as mean or curt or anything like that. And so that kind of brings me into some common avoidable mistakes when we're communicating virtually. In those emails, you might be missing key information that you may have left out. You know, you have a lot of information you want to say, but you may have missed one or two things. There could be confusing or unclear asks in terms of, hey, I want you to do this, but you're not being exactly clear in what that is. And you may not be thinking from their perspective of what you want to be done, and they may not know your perspective on things. You might be providing too much information. Sometimes I see an email, it's a novel, and I don't like that. You know what I mean? Like it's there can be a lot of information. And again, it comes back to respecting people's time, and you don't want to get too much information and bog it down to where the asks that you want and the information you want to give is maybe unclear and kind of in the middle of that. One thing that happens to me a decent amount is that in the top of an email, you might be referring to something in the whole email chain. There might be 15 emails in that email chain, and you're referring to something that happened very below. And that means that person has to then scroll for however long, or they don't even know that it's there. So really making sure that you're aware of that other person's perspective and what they're looking at, what their knowledge is. And so maybe putting that at that top of the email to make sure they understand what's going on. And then again, look through those messages that sound harsher than intended. You know, you might be upset at something. You might want to say something when you see an email and you type it out, but take a second, take a breath, delete and rephrase. You know, that's really good to just kind of look and make sure that, you know, we're all kind of greasing the cogs of the wheel of this and making sure that we're all working together and we're collaborative and not combative. So a few simple best practices, you know, make sure you have clear subject lines, the short paragraphs. So you really don't want to have, you know, 6, 7 lines in a paragraph. If you can just space those out, and that really helps make the visually looking at the email much better to read. Again, we talked about telling the purpose of the email in that first sentence, using natural conversational language. Again, you don't need to sound formal, just be conversational as much as you can. Be polite and warm, kind of goes back to that conversational, and use hyperlinks. You may not want to see a huge long URL. So if you can hyperlink things as much as you can to make sure everything's organized. And as I'm using this slide, you know, using bolds, bullets, highlights, other tools can really help everything look clear and entertaining to the eye and make sure it highlights all the important information. I do that a lot. I like to bold. I'll say the deadline is this, and you bold that and make sure the most important things you want to be saying are bolded, highlighted, whatever it might be. So in person, before we kind of go into this, I want to say that communication is a lot of things. Communication is your body language. Communication is the tone of your voice. Communication is so many different things in how we communicate. And that's why email can be difficult, because that is really just one way of communication of text. So if you do have a in-person meeting, or if you have a virtual meeting, always turn on your camera in those virtual meetings, because it really helps portray that extra communication. And so in person, make sure you're thinking of that as well. And you are portraying exactly what you want to portray in terms of your body language, your voice, everything kind of goes into that. And so in presentations, we're going to be giving those. Just real quick on this, this is really good skeleton and structure on how I build presentations. Say what you're going to say. So in other words, have like a table of contents or something like that at the very beginning. Say it, and then say what you said. So basically it just means have that table of contents, have the body of the presentation, and then a kind of summary conclusion at the end. And that really helps emphasize the points that you want to get across in that presentation. And it's really a good skeleton that you can use for anything that you want to do. And then finally, when you're, you know, just remember to be yourself. You know, you are going into your career and you're going into your first years in that, and you're as an intern at TxDOT, you know, you're fairly new, but that is incredibly valuable for an agency to have that new perspective, to have you here. So your opinions, your voice extremely matters in what we're doing and what we're looking to do. So don't be afraid to speak up and give your opinion. Don't be afraid to talk about things, ask questions. Questions is how you learn. And so I don't think there are any stupid questions. So don't be afraid to raise your hand, ask a question, speak up. Again, your perspective is extremely valuable because we're a little bit inundated at TxDOT. We can be kind of enclosed. And so having your different viewpoint really, really helps us. Okay, and then just briefly on AI, AI is here, you know it. I'm sure you guys use Claude and all the other stuff. So it is here. It's a very, very good tool. It's very helpful in emails. You can use Copilot or other services to rephrase your emails. If you say, hey, make this sound more professional, you can definitely do that. But if you do that, just make sure you always edit. So always edit and have that, we call it the human in the loop process. So make sure you are rephrasing things because AI can make it sound like AI. And so you want to go back in there, edit to make sure it's your tone of voice. It's what you want to say. And then again, just don't rely on it. It's a tool. It's a great tool, but at the end of the day, it is a tool for you to use. It's not the end all be all. So don't rely on AI. So again, say what you're going to say it, say what you said. So remember this, know your audience, respect people's time. I think that's huge. Professional doesn't mean boring. You can still have fun with your emails or communications. Pause before sending, be yourself, and use AI as a tool. Some other notes. So I was talking with Malad and Jewel yesterday about this presentation, and they mentioned a couple things they wanted to kind of touch on. So in terms of feedback and giving and receiving feedback, so make sure it's feedback, not criticism. So in other words, you're wanting to give that feedback, and the goal is to have a better end product. The goal is not to put down that other person or to even just criticize it. Really, your goal in giving that feedback is to have a better product and keeping that in mind at all times and focus on that, but also make sure you have empathy with that other person. So give it in a way that really builds up and says, hey, this is good. I think we can do better. And so having that in mind whenever you're giving feedback.
And then it's similar with receiving feedback as well. I know I sometimes can have trouble when I receive feedback. I take it really personally. It's something I worked hard on. And you're really proud of the product that you put out. So if you get feedback on it that maybe changes what you did, it can be sometimes hard to swallow. But again, remembering that you're trying to make the best product possible. So taking that feedback in order to improve what you've done is always helpful, especially for the agency to make the best thing possible. So it's not always about you, it's about making things better.
And in terms of resume tips, I'm sure HR will have a lot more than I would have on this. So just a couple highlights on that from what I've experienced. You really want to focus on what's important on your resume and then what's important for the job you're applying to. And so make sure everything is applicable to that. Don't have any kind of wasted space. Use action verbs as much as you can. And then just spend that extra time making it look good. Find a template that you like. There's a lot out there, makes it really easy. Make it look pretty, make it look really good. Spend that extra time to make sure it reflects who you are and the work ethic that you put into things. And I think that resume does and can reflect that. So make sure you spend that extra time and take that opportunity to show who you are. Okay. And that's it for us. Would love to answer any questions you guys have.
See one in the